Alrighty, let's get started. Wait for some more people to hop on. We are a minute early. Welcome, guys. Hope everyone had a great weekend. Glad you're all here. Alrighty, I'm gonna get my screen shared and we'll get started for week 2. Also, I'll pull up the chat box. If you guys have any questions in regards to last week, feel free to leave them in the chat box. And we might have time at the end of class today to do Q&A. So let me know. Okay, and then I'm gonna minimize this. All right. How many do we have on right now? Let's see. Okay, 14, 15. Perfect. Okay. Yeah, we're a little bit early, we're not early. We're right on time. So if you have any questions, throw them in the chat box. And then we'll probably get to Q&A at the very end. So thank you everyone for being here. I hope everyone had a great weekend. We had a fun weekend. We went out of town, went to the sand dunes, and oh, Dustin says my volume seems low. Okay, let's see. Is that any better? If not, I can go get my AirPods. Let me know if that's any better. It's me. Okay, Eric says it's good for him. Dina says good. Okay, Dustin, on your end. All right, make sure your volume's up. Okay, perfect. So, yeah, we went to the sand dunes this weekend. I got a new machine, so first time driving it out there, loved it. So, highly recommend. If you have never been to the sand dunes, highly recommend. It's like the most fun thing I've ever done outside of driving a race car, of course. So, let's get started. So today's class, this is session number 2, and today we are going to be talking about knowing your audience and the power of leverage using that. So in this lesson, we focus on analyzing your audience data, creating your personas, and then brainstorming activation ideas that align with your race team, your audience, and your sponsor goals. So today we are going to go over how to segment your audience into 2 to 3 distinct niches and creating those detailed personas. The importance of we're not going to be going over rate cards. That will be next week. So sorry, I forgot to take that one out. Then we're going to brainstorm activation ideas that will connect your audience, your race team, and your sponsor. And then at the very end, I have a grid system to combine what your audience, your race team, and your sponsor wants into actionable activation concepts. So last week, we focused on gathering crucial audience data by sending out your surveys. And I loved seeing your guys' feedback in the Facebook group of how, being able to help each other out. Like, I love that. So thank you guys for, like, Dustin and Justin for participating in the group, helping out other people, and sharing feedback, answering each other's surveys. And then also loved seeing that you were meeting your expectations or going above and beyond by the number of responses that you got. So I love that. Hopefully by now your survey is finished. So, take a week, 5 days, 3 days, 2 days, however long you want to take for your survey. It should be finished by now or finishing up today if you did get it started last week. If you did not, it's still not too late to start. You can do that this week. So if you missed that, make sure you go watch the replay from last week so you can see how we set it up. I use SurveyMonkey. It is not required because you do need a paid subscription for it. But you could do it on Google Forms, or I saw that Walter, which I don't know if I can't see everybody right now, so I don't know if he's in here right now. But Walter found another platform I don't know if it was free or if it was paid, but he could maybe throw that up in the Facebook group of another survey platform that he found. Dina says Survey Pluto is free and worked really well for her. So yeah, so Survey Monkey is not required. That is just what I used for this time. And like I said, all the other times in the past, I've used Google Forms because it is free, but I wanted just something that would show me more of the results better. So like I was saying, hopefully by now your survey's done, and we need that data from your survey results to go into our next step, which that is understanding what that data means and then how it can be used when seeking sponsorships. And just a quick reminder, I know like everyone probably did an incentive, so make sure you do pick your winner. Just do a random, person, and however you want to figure it out. I like honestly for mine, and I included this in the disclaimer because I had people that started to answer like the first couple of questions in the survey, but then they didn't complete the rest of it. And so in my disclaimer, I had that you had to have answered every question to be able to actually be entered into the giveaway. So if you did include that in yours, make sure you're picking someone that did actually answer all of your questions, and reach out to them via email this week to get their shipping address and send out the prizes. And I love how creative you guys all got with your prizes. So to go along with the audience data, you might be wondering, why are we starting out with audience data and why is this so important? Well, here's the thing. Sponsorship is only 10% about putting a logo on your race car. Sponsorship is 90% about connecting your audience with the brands that want to reach them. And unfortunately, as racers and other athletes I see, they get that mixed up. They think 90% of it is, how can I put a logo on my car, the size, placement, putting a wrap on, all that type of stuff. And then they only put 10% of their effort towards connecting with their audience or driving sales or doing sampling or whatever it is that the goal of that sponsorship is. So 10% is the logo, 90% is your audience. And the better you know your audience, the easier it becomes to show sponsors that you have exactly the type of people that they want to engage with. And remember, this is the foundation that we are working on. Companies aren't just sponsoring you because they like racing. Okay, they're sponsoring you because they see value in your audience to become their customers. The race car is just the thing that draws them in. Okay, so we don't need to base our sponsorships on performance or on quantity of races that we're going to. It's all about how can you connect with your audience. And when you can present clear data-driven insights about who follows you, you're no longer just offering exposure to a broad group of people. You're offering targeted access to a specific and desirable niche of customers. And that is what the sponsors are after. So this week, we are going to segment your audience into more specific groups or niches. And by doing this, you'll be able to identify exactly what types of brands or industries will benefit the most from sponsoring you. And that is what leads to long-term, extended, renewed partnerships. So whether your audience is made up of off-road enthusiasts or suburban parents or corporate professionals, creating these segments will help you find sponsors that align perfectly with your fan base. And the more specific you get, the more appealing you become to those right companies. And remember, companies don't want to sponsor just the general public. They're not trying to reach every person out there. They want a small group of people. And your job is knowing if your audience fits that match. And when it does, the sponsorship basically sells itself. So let's dive into how you can start grouping your audience into actionable niches and develop personas that will make your decks stand out. So segmenting your audience. If you have completed your survey, which you should have by now, you should be able to look at the results and be able to look at the charts and the graphs and see how people answered. And you might find that there's a lot of commonalities that you have. So we want to take those and group them into what people have in common. So think of each segment as a smaller, more focused group within your overall audience that shares those common characteristics. So that could be their lifestyle, their hobbies, their age, what type of car they own, or even where they live. And these segments are incredibly important because, like I've been saying, it gives you a clear picture of who your audience is. And then, more importantly, helps you understand what they value and then how they make their purchasing decisions. And then when you do present that to sponsors, you're essentially saying, hey, this is who my audience is, and here's why they would be interested in your product. So to get started, we need to look at your results and identify those trends. So this would take the longest part of what your homework is for this week, and it shouldn't take too long. And honestly, if you want to throw it into ChatGPT and ask it to identify those trends for you, you could. I haven't done that, so I don't know exactly how easy that would be to like copy and paste. But if you are getting stuck, like I'll be honest, I use ChatGPT quite a bit as well. So if you do get stuck, you can use that to help you kind of figure out where your bottleneck is. So here's some examples, and this is like what we covered in last week. So it could be 30 to 40-year-old suburban moms with kids who play sports. That could be one of your niche segments. Or maybe you have more 50 to 60-year-old corporate executives who are nearing retirement. Or maybe you have more 20 to 30-year-old tradespeople who are in the market for tools and starting a family. So these were examples that I provided last week, but each one of these segments represent a potential sponsorship. The key here is to make sure, though, that you are getting specific enough so that way the sponsors can easily see if their product does align with the interests and the needs of that group. So when you're going to a brand with them and you have a meeting with them, you want to make sure that you do have these segments very clear and specific because you're offering them a focused opportunity and not just a vague promise of offering exposure by putting a logo on the side of your car. So I hope that makes sense. And I have an example. I found this years ago, and I think I found it on LinkedIn. But there was a post about making sure, even though you are getting detailed, that there could still be very varying differences between your audience. So let's say based on your survey, most of your audience is male. They're born in or around 1948, raised in the UK. They've been married twice. They currently live in a castle, and they're very wealthy and famous. Okay, that describes these two gentlemen on the screen right here. But if you notice, they look very different. One is King Charles and the other is Ozzy Osbourne. Okay, so they have the same description, but that's just based on their demographics. Once you look more into their psychographics, their buying interest, even down to like what type of music they like, you'll see that they are different. So we're not trying to, we want to make sure that when you are defining your segments, you are getting more specific with their personal side and not just focusing on the demographics. and keeping it very broad. Because if you go to a sponsor, they probably will be impressed if you even have this much information, because this is more than what any racer has probably ever sent to them before. So even if you say this, it might impress them, but then might do some more research or have some more conversations with you, and then they might realize that, oh, like this is actually not our audience, because they're completely different, because you're keeping it too broad. So we want to get very, very, very specific. And Anthony says Charles could be into metal. He could. I don't know his music type. But as you could tell, just by looking at the picture, two very different gentlemen there. So just to talk a little bit more about keeping it very niche and not broad. I know it's tempting to kind of think, overview picture, trying to keep it easy, keeping it broad, but it's not appealing to sponsors. And like the saying goes, the riches are in the niches, and sponsors want to know exactly who they are reaching through you. And a broad, vague audience description just won't cut it anymore. Your audience is likely made up of many different types of people. I know mine is. And your job is to find that common thread that does tie those groups together. So that could be music, right? So by doing this, you offer the sponsors, again, that targeted audience that they are trying to reach. But don't forget, you and your audience can belong to multiple segments. Just like I can be in, the fitness category, but also in the business professional segment or the off-road enthusiast segment. So your audience may have some crossover, and that's okay. Just making sure that you are able to identify it and then start to think how you can appeal to each one. And this, again, will help you figure out that best fit for sponsorships. So your homework for this week, which is already posted in the members area, is to take your survey results and start grouping your audience into 2 to 3 distinct segments. And then for each segment, write down those common traits, their hobbies, their interests, or their behaviors that they have. And these are people that you want to focus on as we move through Fueled and Funded to build out your sponsorship decks. Okay, and then make sure though that you do leave room to refine these as you do this again in the future. So like I said last week, try to do your survey minimum twice a year. The more you do it, the more data you get, the more you can refine your segments and your niches, and you can add on to that. And you can find a sponsor for every single one that you get. And you may find that one segment is stronger than another, or that you have new patterns emerge as you continue to track your audience data. And remember, the more you do it, the more people you are reaching. So I know we used social media and some people used email to reach their audience, but I bet you didn't reach every single person that follows you, right? Only about 6 to 10% of your social media followers were the ones that probably filled out your survey. So the more times you post about it, the more times you do a giveaway and, just trying to get people to fill out your survey, the better your data will be. And in return, better your sponsorships will be. So this week, again, we are then moving on to creating the personas. And it is now time to bring them to life. And so these personas help you make sense of your data and allow you and your sponsor to visualize that person. So I have an example to share. This is Suburban Sarah. Okay, Sarah is 35 years old. She's a stay-at-home mom living in the suburbs. She has 2 children who are active in sports, and she buys sports gear, and she buys family-friendly SUVs. And she loves to shop at stores that offer convenience and sustainability. So this is just an example of someone, okay, but we're giving them a name. And I threw in this picture here because you can probably, like, as I'm reading the description, that's probably exactly who you're thinking of. So we want to, after we identify your niches, you want to just give them a name and create that persona so it feels more realistic. And when you are posting on social media and when you are, doing sponsored promotion content, you want to think of your suburban Sarah or whoever it is that's in that niche. Just give them a name and kind of give them a picture of who it looks like. You might not be accurate, with your picture, but this is who you want to be thinking of when you're working with a specific sponsor. And again, it becomes easier to tailor your pitches and your marketing strategies once you kind of have that detailed name and story and description of who it is, because you are reaching real people. You're not just reaching out to bots or AI trying to promote your sponsors. You're reaching out to real people. And you want to try to make it your segments and your niches, try to make it as realistic as possible. And to go kind of over more of like the general public, it's less valuable and more vague. And again, you might seem like, well, I'm trying to reach a whole bunch of people, you know, so the more people, the better, right? And that doesn't always work. So when you're saying that you're trying to reach the general public, it's just an undefined group of people. And that's not useful when it comes to sponsorship. It's too broad and it's too vague. So sponsors want to know exactly who you are reaching out to. And with that said, most of your audience will fall into the general public, and that is okay. Right? So whenever you are doing your segments and your niches, it might only be, each segment that you come up with might only make up 10% of your audience. You're not trying to do the general, what's the biggest group I can come up with. You want to get very specific. So size doesn't matter when it comes to your niches. It's about how can you accurately define them. So maybe you only do 10% segments of your audience. So that's 70% that is left in the general public. And like I said, that's totally okay. Right now in Fueled and Funded, we are just focusing on those core segments that you can work with, because like I've been saying, the more specific it is, the easier it is to get sponsorship. So like I said, as you continue to get more data and do your surveys more times, you will then be able to fine tune that 70% and expand your segment. So maybe the next time you do it, you get more people coming in. Okay, you get new results, and maybe you see, oh, it's shifted. Now you have 3 more segments. So now you have only 40% in the general public. Okay, so I hope that's making sense. So the key here is to start small and get really specific. And you're not trying to appeal to everyone. It's not useful for sponsorships to cater to the general public. So we want to narrow your focus on your niche audiences, and then that way you will be able to provide more targeted, valuable insights to them. Okay, so the second part of your homework is to group them into, after you group them into your 2 to 3 segments, then create a persona for each one. So give them a name, write out their description, focus on their demographics, their hobbies, their interests, what common traits they have. All righty, moving on. So now we're going to talk about activations, and we're going to do a little bit of brainstorming. So activations is the thing that outside of your audience, the thing that sets you apart from other racers. Activations is not logo placement. Activations are creative and memorable experiences that will resonate with your audience. It is not advertising. Sponsorships are no longer just about visibility and advertising. They're looking for unique ways to interact with fans in a meaningful way. And activations allow them to do just that. So, by offering experiences that create emotional connections and memorable events. So, for your race team, activations can help you provide your audience with something they'll remember and talk about. It will give your sponsors more direct engagement with their target market, and it will help you stand out by offering your sponsors creative and tailored ways to connect with fans. So, to help you start thinking about activations, I'm going to give you some real world examples that have been done at different sporting events and races. And then at the end, we're going to brainstorm together. Okay. So I want you to, like, if anything creative comes in your mind, go ahead and write it down. And I want to bring everybody on and brainstorm in a little bit. Okay, so my first example is Pit Stop Challenge. So Red Bull has hosted fan activation zones where the spectators can come and try their hand at doing a real pit stop. So they get to use the actual equipment to change tires on an F1 car. They get to compete to see who's the fastest, and it gives them hands-on experience. So this is perfect for those tool companies, right? That we talked about last week. And then, of course, there's Red Bull all over with the branding all over the space. So it helps tie it together with Red Bull, with the tool company, and with the sport and with the fans. Next up is Coca-Cola. And as part of their partnership with FIFA, Coca-Cola took the World Cup trophy on a global tour and gave it to fans to be able to take pictures with the trophy. And so they also got branded merchandise. There was social media stations, and this activation gave fans a unique and personal connection to the events while also driving social media engagement for Coca-Cola. So I love seeing this type of stuff. All right, moving on, we have Michelin, and they set up a fan zone at the Le Mans, the 24-hour race, where visitors could experience a virtual reality laps of the track with professional drivers. And this immersive VR experience allowed the fans to feel like, they're actually in the race themselves driving the cars. So it was designed to promote Michelin's high performance tires and then showcase their expertise in motorsports, giving the fans the ability to drive and use their tires without actually using it. Next, we have Bud Lights and the NFL Tailgating Tour. So, Bud Light created a branded experience where they traveled to various NFL games, especially the Chiefs, because that's where I'm at, Kansas City. So, this activation included a lot of games and giveaways and appearances by NFL athletes and legends. The fans could participate to win game tickets or exclusive Bud Light merchandise. And so it connected Bud Light with the fans and with NFL and enhanced the game day experience. And last, we have, to tie it in with football, we have the Pepsi halftime show fan zone at the Super Bowl. So Pepsi created a fan zone where the fans could participate in halftime themed activities. So this included a photo booth with props, live music, and dance contests. So this activation leveraged the high energy atmosphere of the Super Bowl to build engagement and excitement around the Pepsi brand. So I hope this was able to get some wheels turning of what you could do for activations and not just think of, oh, I could put a logo on the side of my car. So your homework for this week is to come up with at least 3 activation ideas for each of your personas and your niches that you come up with. So you want to write down any idea that you have, big or small, it doesn't matter because we're going to refine them later on. So as you're going through this week, you might start to notice if you're, because I know it's football season, so maybe you're going to a football game or you watch it on TV, you might see something that is like an in-person activation at the game. And then maybe you're like, okay, that's what they're doing. So instead of just, saying, hey, we'll put a banner up or we'll display your logo or we'll do a TV commercial, how else is, something like the NFL getting sponsorships by doing activations at the games? So kind of think of that. Maybe, you're going to a concert or you're going to a race, anything that you might think of or you might see in person that is an activation, take note of it because maybe that's something you could do, or maybe it'll spark something creative. So this week, we're going to focus on creating your sponsorship grids. And so in the grid, we're going to, so first off, segment your audience, create a persona, and then we're going to put it in a grid to help brainstorm activation ideas. So this grid is going to meet the needs of all the parties involved. So it helps out your audience, it helps out you and your race team, and it helps out the sponsor. So we have a 4-box grid system. And again, we were trying to keep it balanced and beneficial for everybody involved. And the grid helps you kind of visualize how to approach your sponsorships. So to break it down, first, what your audience wants. So again, think back to that persona that you're going to create this week. And what does each segment of your audience value? What kind of experience would excite them or make them feel more connected? So what they want can range greatly, and you don't know exactly what they want. You're just kind of assuming based on the data that they gave you in their survey. Maybe you could tell they want some behind the scenes content, or they like hands-on experiences, or maybe they prefer demonstrations and discounts. So for example, going back to our suburban Sarah, so she probably wants healthy snacks that she can bring to the sporting games and practices for her kids. So understanding, what they value can help shape that into an activation later on. So next, what your race team wants. Obviously, this is going to be the easiest, but think outside of just funding so that way you can go racing. So what else can help you meet your goals? Do you want to build a stronger connection with your fans? Are you looking to generate more buzz on social media? Maybe you want to sell more merchandise, or you want to help drive more attendance to your events and races. So for example, let's say your goal is social media engagement. So you might want an activation that encourages fans to post about their experience and tag you on their stories. And next, what the sponsor wants, and base it on their industry. So this is what we worked on last week. And a lot of you picked the same industries. That's great. There's nothing wrong with that. But maybe after you look at your audience data, it might change. So again, you want to consider what we talked about last week of what their needs are for their industry. So maybe they want lead generation. Maybe they want more brand visibility or direct engagement with their potential customers. So go over last week what we talked about and what their goals are if you need some more clarity for that. But for instance, let's say that your sponsor is food and beverage, because that's one that a lot of people picked. And I get it. easy. We all need to eat and drink, right? So, if that is the one that you picked, so remember, their goal is to create familiarity through sampling opportunities with their products. So this is where you are doing the sampling, so that way they don't have to go and actually do it themselves. And then box number 4 is the activation ideas. And so for your homework, I want you to come up with 3 ideas for each one. But here's just an example that I came up with. So we have Suburban Sarah. She wants healthy snacks for her kids at games and practices. You want, or I want, increased social media engagement and to build awareness. My sponsor wants familiarity with sampling opportunities. Okay, now that I know all of that, how can I combine it together? Well, I came up with the idea for a Fuel Up for Game Day campaign where families that are attending kids' sporting games and practices can get free samples of healthy snacks from my food and beverage sponsor. So I will have a branded snack station and I'll have my race car there on display to help attract more attention and build more awareness just by having the car on display. And I will invite local media to cover the event, and that will help increase exposure by having a featured segment on TV or in the newspaper or radio station. And I will also encourage moms to post about the event on their Instagram stories, making sure they tag my account and the sponsor's account for a chance to win a month supply of snacks for free. And I will encourage the attendees and the moms with a snack wheel so they could win some prizes there as well. And we will have some, t-shirts there that people could have, any of the other giveaways that I have, and, just branded signage there. So this way, both me and the sponsor will get content for social media. We will amplify engagement. We will increase brand recognition. And most importantly, we will give out samples and provide families with healthy snacks for game day. So I hope you can see how I was able to take the 3 parts of the grid and combine it into just one activation idea. Okay, so now it's our time to work together. So I want you to start thinking of some activation examples and how they can cater to you, your sponsor, and your audience. So we're going to take some time now together for class, and I want you guys to unmute yourself. Let's, workshop this, do it all together, and let's dive in. So you might not have your segments created because, we just went over it. That's okay. But I want you to share anything that you have seen in person or online. So like I said, it could be at the racetrack. It could be from a sporting event. It could be at a concert or a festival or conference that you've attended. So kind of think of things that have stood out to you. What made that activation memorable? And what caught your eye with it? Or maybe you saw other people get really excited about it. So I want us to work together to kind of inspire and help each other out. So let's take a few minutes here to share our ideas. And I'll stop sharing my screen so that way we can all come on camera. And oops, my computer is about to die. So let's take 10 minutes and let's brainstorm together. Does anyone want to unmute themselves?
We'll go. I'm volunteering, Eric. So male dominated audience. We've done a survey before, not as anywhere near as extensive as what you're suggesting, Megan. But we knew, the age group, and some other details, not as in depth. But anyway, we went to a Canadian menswear company and pitched them. I think Eric pitched them for over a year, just poking them on
Yeah.
LinkedIn and, hey, what about this? Hey, what about that? And we invested in a t-shirt cannon. They're not cheap, but we said, hey, we invested in it without even having them on board. We said, hey, what about launching some of your product into the crowds at Podium? So we got permission from the series, obviously, before we pitched it, and then they finally came on board for the last race of last year. And we also had the broadcast announcers involved and tossed a couple of their way, and then they actually talked about it on the broadcast as well, which was good.
I love that. That is such a good idea.
And
Amazing.
just for, I can see some comments here about the t-shirt cannon on the wish list. If you happen to know some other people that are not in your series, because you don't want to be competing with people within your series, but you guys could like pitch in and share it across multiple series because they're not cheap.
Yeah, I haven't even looked into that, so I'm not sure how much that costs, but that's a good idea to share. Um, Amazing. Love that idea. Thank you, Sharon. And I see in the comments, Kimberly says to have a similar for simulator for iRacing in a fan section. I know my friend Saber Cook does that. She is a Porsche racer and she does have a sponsor, and she will go to Porsche dealerships and bring the simulator with her. And so that way people can test drive what it's like to drive the car on a racetrack. And then Walter also says race simulator. Eric says at the Omaha Storm Chasers usually hands out a free item to the first X amount of guests. Yeah, good idea. Okay, Nicole says SCCA events usually involve a lot of volunteers, so I was thinking a good activation in my case would be to hand out samples to volunteers personally, in addition to setting up a booth in my pit area and handing out samples to volunteers personally would make for good photos for social too. That's, yes, it will. Eric
Randy.
says, oh, sorry, go ahead.
It's Randy. A really unique activation I saw happen this year was actually done at a hotel that we were staying at for a boat race. The hotel brought in RC boats, little, you know, battery operated RC boats, and drove traffic to their hotel and restaurant by having people boat race in the pool.
Oh, no way. That's awesome.
So just something way out there that, like I
Hmm.
said, do at a location, and of course it was theme fitting because of boat racing.
Yeah, that's such a good idea. I love that. Wonderful. Okay, so in the chat box, we have Eric says to do a reaction time contest on the drag bike of mine and to win a sponsor's item. So that's a really good idea. And yeah, Anthony says Christmas time reaction time setups are getting popular. Yes. And they're pretty easy to set up as well. Kimberly says rubber ducks with the race team or sponsor name on it, then have the rubber ducks race in a local pond. That happened at our community pool here. So one day, and like had no idea this was happening, but just happened to go to the pool with my son on the day that the our community pool was doing a big fundraiser, and they did that where you could buy a rubber ducky, I think for $1 or whatever donation you want to make. And then they would, write your name on it or give you a number. And then they dumped like literally hundreds of these rubber ducks into the lazy river. And they got to do a race with the rubber duckies. And, the kids just loved it. They chased them around. So that could be something. And that's, something like that could be very simple. But a great idea to, get more involved. Uh, okay, Cody says it's not a big announcement type of activation, but when people come up and ask if they want to sit in the race car, it starts to draw a big crowd into your pit. Yes. Yeah. And especially like giving that experience to little kids, that's something they're going to remember for the rest of their life. Justin, do you want to come on?
Yeah, sorry, I'm at work right now. But so this is kind of a seasonal one, but potentially working with like Halloween stores like Spirit Halloween to like have a haunted house like in your trailer or having them come to the track and sell costumes. Maybe some kind of activation like that. Could do some kind of creepy trick or trunk, working with those companies.
Yeah, I love that idea. All right. Walter
Trick
said,
and treat out of trailers is pretty common within the junior world. They do that because we have a lot of races during Halloween.
yeah, so maybe like if you guys could do a like Justin was saying, like a sponsorship with the Halloween store and then do a like a group trailer trick-or-treating events. That could be something. Yeah. In the chat box, Walter says to do a live podcast in the pits during downtime or in real life interviews with other drivers and fans about topics related to brands or products. Eric says Kelly Clance just did a trunk or treat with their stacker and bikes this past weekend and talked about their sponsors and careers. Yeah. Yeah. I feel like, yeah, decorating your trailer could be a really great idea. Awesome.
I've seen a lot of reaction time giveaways, which is not necessarily the same thing, where they're raffling off full rolling chassis race cars, more for racer design stuff. But I don't know, just spitballing here, I don't know how you could use that for something as well.
Yeah.
Bristol's big at doing that.
Awesome. All right. Kimberly says we are working with a local shelter to help animals get adopted, and we also have our local vet's office bringing animals to the tracks or cars to the shelter. I love that. And actually just talked with someone else from the group last night about something very similar like that. So working with your, a local shelter or like a nonprofit organization and seeing how could you tie that together with racing. And it doesn't have to be at like an actual race. You could do something more involved with the community or maybe just hosting it at the racetrack. And so Eric asked, what are thoughts on doing activations on race weekend versus other times, like bringing your car to a grocery store? So I have done like, I don't even know, dozens of activations at grocery stores and retail stores. So what we've done, because for the longest time we had a chicken sponsor, so we had to go to grocery stores and give out coupons for people to buy chicken. So obviously we can't do sampling of raw chicken because no one wants to eat that, but we can give them a coupon. And so we would go to grocery stores. We would usually do it on, so let's say the race starts on Friday. So Thursday evening, like 4 to 6, because that's typically the busiest time when people are getting off work. They're stopping by the grocery store before they head home. And so, and also, that's when kids are out of school. So we would come around 4 to 6 to a grocery store that was close to either home for us or close to what racetrack we were going to. So we do that the day before the race starts, give out the coupons, and then obviously, have the cars there on display and invite the people, hey, what are your plans this weekend? If you're not doing anything, we're going to be at this racetrack. We're going to be running, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Would love for you to come out, see the car in action. Have you ever been to a drag race before? So just start having like that conversation while you're there, because the race car is just there to use as a prop. That's just there to draw people in and get their attention because it's big, it's bold, something they've probably never seen before. and especially kids love it. So you can just use your race car as a prop to get the attention and bring people in. Once they're in, that's when you can hand out the coupons and invite them out to your races. Eric says should have bought a grill. Yeah. That would take too much time. And like Dina said, unfortunately, something could happen if someone gets sick. But coupons were great. We sold tons of chicken by handing out coupons. Awesome. So okay, I hope this helped you guys. If you have any ideas that pop up into your head, and it could be something that has never been done before. Okay, don't let that limit you, but use the Facebook group to brainstorm together. We're here to work together. Okay, we're not all going to be trying to go after the same company. So it might be the same industry, but and as we get further along into the process, in 2 weeks is when we're actually going to be reaching out to companies. So we want to have all this groundwork done first before we start reaching out to them, because as soon as you start that conversation, you need to have these answers to their questions, and they're going to ask you, what activations do you have in mind? Like, what can you do for us? And so you want to already have some ideas in the bank that you can pull from when the time comes. So I'm going to go back to the presentation. We're almost done. Just got a little bit left to do. So you'll see this grid in your homework assignments for this week. And again, if you have any questions, let me know in the Facebook group. But let's work together. If you are getting stuck with coming up with 3 different activation ideas, the group is always there to help. So next week, we are going to focus on evaluating these. And so we're going to see how can we actually put a dollar value so that way you know how much to charge for what you can offer to a sponsor based on your activation and based on your audience. So what can you bring to the table and how much is it actually worth? Because what we don't want to do is go to a sponsor and say, hey, this is how much my entry fee is. This is how much my tires cost. This is how much it costs to, bring my friend to the track to help me out. Can you cover those expenses? So not doing that. Instead, we're saying, hey, we're going to do this type of activation, and this is how much it's going to cost. So next week, our call is going to be on Wednesday at the same time as today. So please remember to register. And as always, it will be recorded. So the replay will be available if you do need that. So if you have not registered for it, remember you can do that inside of the members area. So that's all I have for today's call. We can open up Q&A if anybody has any questions of what we talked about today, or if you want to brainstorm any more on different type of activations, we can go ahead and do that. But that's all I've got for you guys today. Okay, Cody asked how to filter out bot responses or results in the survey. Good question. So I don't think there's a way to automatically do it. So you would need to manually do that. So if you notice that there's just some funky responses, or you can probably see it with the name and email section if they filled that out. That's for me, that's always the first place I go to, is I go and look at their name and email. And if it's just a bunch of random numbers and letters, then yeah, I would just, if there's a way to delete their entire response, then you can do that. If not, you'll just kind of have to manually sort through it and see if it skews anything in your survey there. Eric and Sharon asked, do you cover fulfillment reports later on in the course? Yes, so that will be at the very end. So we're going to go through the acquisition process first. Then we'll go through the deck and proposal contract section. At the end, we will go through the actual like deliverables. What are you doing for the sponsor? How to measure it, your KPIs, how to measure ROI. And then at the very end is when we do our proof of performance report. So it's what's also known as a fulfillment report. Justin says, I didn't target any industry in my survey. Do I just do the best I can with the information I have? Yes. So yeah, and that's totally fine if you didn't. The survey is kind of broad. And so if there is a specific industry or a specific company that you are wanting to work with down the road, you can change out the questions in your survey to be able to be the best fit for that. So say it's an apparel company that you're trying to work for. Obviously, you don't need to ask them like what car care products they buy or any of those questions that I provided for you. You would change, like what quality do you look for in t-shirts or whatever type of apparel it is or the company that you're trying to work for. The one that we have right now is just more broad, so try to figure out if you can see if there's any of those like common trends in the responses that you got from your survey, and then see if there is an industry that would be a good fit for them. So if a lot of them said that they are going to sporting events or purchasing sport products, then that would tell you, oh, hey, maybe I need to go and reach out to an industry that is a retailer for sporting goods, or a manufacturer that makes sporting products. So it might, you might be surprised on the results that you get going through them and being like, oh, I thought my audience was more into this. Turns out they're actually more into this other industry. And so it might be something new for you. Okay. All right. Nicole says, what do you think a good response rate for your survey is? If it is low, could that indicate that your followers aren't very engaged? Yes. So, I would say like there's not like a number because everybody's audience size is different. So if your survey results is less than like, honestly, I would say like 5% or less than like your total number of followers that you have or the number of people you sent it out to, then I would say like 5% or less is low. Try to get to 10%, 15, 20%. And like I said, it's social media is very hard to get people to click away from what they're doing and scrolling on social media to go and take 5 minutes to fill out a survey. So I don't always rely on only sourcing my traffic from social media. That's why I have an email newsletter list and I got majority of my responses from there. So just another reason why, and down the road in the future, it's a good idea to set up an email list. But yes, if it is low, I would go back and look at see how many times did you actually post about it. If you only posted once, you need to go and post about it again. If you want to extend your deadline so you can get more responses, you can totally do that. Just make sure you announce that. And then, make sure that you're actually getting good responses as well for your survey. Okay, Randy says, I include a manual entry question in my surveys, like type the letter Z. Any surveys that don't have the letter Z in the answer, I don't count. That's a good idea. Jacob says, when you went from Supercomp to Top Alcohol, what companies were you trying to target? It's hard to go after a Bud Light or Netflix, for example. Yes. So you want to, and then we'll go over this in more in 2 weeks when we get to the like prospecting side of it. But I don't want to like make this to sound bad, but don't try to go after those huge multi-billion-dollar companies because yes, the odds of them sponsoring a grassroots racer is very slim. But you want to see, okay, if you know like your audience is going to be perfect for this specific type of company, but it is a very big company, it's going to take a long time to work your way in and get a connection there or a referral to work with them. So when we get to the prospecting phase, we go over how to use LinkedIn to get that in. But in-person events is always going to be the best way to do that. So we'll get to that in a couple of weeks. But for like to answer your question, for me personally, and to be honest, when I was transitioning from the super comp to the top alcohol car, I was very new to sponsorships, so I didn't really even know what I was doing back then. I was still offering logo placements and social media posts. So I was honestly just trying to work with people that I already knew. It didn't matter what industry or audience, anything like that. When I started, I did not have a big audience at all. I had 1,700 followers on Instagram when I got started racing professionally. So I had no big following, audience at all compared to other people. So don't let that limit you though, but also understand like when I was like in your shoes, I also had no idea what I was doing. So that's why I'm more motivated like now than ever to have Fueled and Funded and to help racers out because if I knew how to survey my audience and how to segment them and then use that information to get sponsorships, I would have had bigger sponsorships faster, sooner than I did. It took me years to be able to get a good sponsorship and because I didn't know what I was doing. Okay, good question. Okay, Cody, it's difficult, let alone in survey links. Okay, and then Eric and Sharon, do you run two separate surveys for email list versus social media? Good question. Okay, so what I did with SurveyMonkey, I did one survey, but you can do different links. And so it's called a UTM tag on Google. And so just to kind of explain very simply, so like when you're doing SEO, like search engine optimization, anything with websites, a blog post, articles, videos, anything like that, you can take that hyperlink and add a UTM tag to it. And then like you have to go into your Google Analytics and that tag will tell you how many people clicked on that link or viewed that page. So like, for example, when I was promoting Fueled and Funded, right? So a lot of you saw it through Facebook ads, but I also sent out emails. I also had Instagram ads and posts about it. And each one, every time I shared that link, I can do a separate UTM tag. It leads all back to the exact same page. So the sales page doesn't change. I don't have to have a separate one for each link, but just adding on to the URL, through like your Google Analytics, you can add a UTM tag and it will tell me exactly how many people clicked on this link on a Facebook ad. And then I can do a UTM tag for blog articles. How many people clicked on to go to the Fueled and Funded website through my blogs or through Instagram? So there's an unlimited number of UTM tags that you can create. So SurveyMonkey allows you to do that as well. And so it wasn't like a complicated process at all. But when you went to the section after you completed the survey, there's a section for sharing your survey. It allows you to create multiple links and then give each one of those links a name. So that's what I did. So I did, and it's like I say, the same survey, same website, but I had one link that was just for Facebook, one link that was just for Instagram, and then one link that was just for email. And so I could see exactly where my responses were coming from. So I got, let's say, 30 from Facebook, 20 from Instagram, but then I got 80 from email. So then that tells me, okay, email is my best bet when I go to do this in the future, or that's where I am, obviously it's a lot easier to get people to click on a link in an email than it is on social media. So that's just, it doesn't change anything. It's just gives me, again, more data to tell me, hey, this is where majority of my responses are coming from. So again, tells me I need to keep growing my email list to get more data in the future. So hope that makes sense. And Justin, thank you for reminding me. So for those that stayed on, tonight I am teaching a class with the Shift Up Now group, and I have my t-shirt on. So Shift Up Now, really briefly, because I know we're over time now. Shift Up Now is a group that focuses on finding funding for female racers, no matter what type of motorsports. And so it is, it's for everyone, but they focus just on females. It's a female founded, female led organization. It is a nonprofit organization. Their primary purpose is to get sponsorship money from their corporate sponsors, from donations, and from their membership. And then they give that to racers that they work with. So Sabra Cook, like I mentioned earlier, she's one of those. And so I have been a member of Shift Up Now for years. This year, my company is a sponsor of Shift Up Now. And in return, I am going to be doing a class tonight with their group. And it is the presentation that I gave a few weeks ago for Fueled and Funded. So the 5 reasons why your sponsorship deck is backwards and how to fix it. So hopefully if you're on right now, you didn't miss it, but it was a class that I did live and there was no replay. And I know we hit the max capacity limit with Zoom. So there was unfortunately a few hundred people that registered that weren't able to come and watch the replay because I could only have a maximum of 100 people attend. So I'm going to be doing the exact same class again tonight at 7, it's 8, 7 Central, correct? 7, 8 Central. I don't remember. I think it's 8 o'clock my time tonight. I know it's 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern time tonight. If you want to join, you have to become a member of Shift Up Now. It's $10 a month. And I don't encourage you to just sign up for 1 month and then cancel it, because you do get access to other classes that they host with other professionals. They also do iRacing competitions. And Nicole, they do a monthly giveaway, and they also have discounts on manufacturers like oh my gosh, like Safety Gear, any of their other partners. My company gives a discount to their members. So your $10 a month goes a long way. You get a lot back in return for that. So that's tonight. I can shoot over that link in the email. So if you do want to join, it is for anyone. Anyone can come and join. Highly encourage, the membership is for anybody. Just the racers that they give their sponsorship money dollars to only goes towards female racers. But male or female can join and be a member and take advantage of those benefits, their giveaways, and their discounts, including their classes. So it will be tonight. I'll shoot over that link. I hope to see you guys there, especially if you missed my first class that I did a few weeks ago. And it is recorded. So you do get access to replay of my class as well as all the other classes. And I have done once a year for multiple years. This will be the first one I do on sponsorships, but I have done other classes with them. Like last year or 2 years ago, I did one that was strictly just on how to use LinkedIn and how to reach out to people using LinkedIn. So very informative, an amazing group of ladies. I love working with them. So highly encourage you to check it out and become an ally of Shift Up Now. So I hope to see you guys there tonight. If not, I will see you next week. for our next fueled and funded class. As always, use the Facebook group if you have any questions. Let's work together, help each other out, and brainstorm. And remember to email me your homework assignment, which is available in the members area. So that's all I have for you guys. Thank you so much for staying on and joining us live today. I hope to see everyone again next week. Bye, guys.